John Fitzgerald Kennedy was the 35th President of the United States. He was shot to death on November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, a little before my time, by an assassin, or what many believe to be assassins, plural, with an S. Hi, I'm Dave Watkins, and today we're going to take a look at the recent 4K release of Oliver Stone's 1991 epic political thriller, JFK, starring Kevin Costner and an amazing supporting cast. Now, this movie was put out by Shout Studios. Shout Studios is probably more well known for their horror sub-label Scream Factory, where they put out amazing movies like Alligator and Black Christmas. I recommend both of these. But this is a Shout Select, where they put out numerous other types of genre movies that typically aren't horror, like Summer School, like movies like this that I liked in the 80s, and even something older like The Magnificent Seven. Here, JFK, every one of these Shout Select movies has a number on it. This one is number 153. The movie right before this one, 152, was none other than the movie Clue, based on the board game, starring Tim Curry and an ensemble cast of amazing actors like Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, a bunch of other people, but I recommend this one too. But back to JFK. So JFK follows Kevin Costner's character, Jim Garrison, based on a real person, also called Jim Garrison. He was a New Orleans district attorney. It follows Jim Garrison as he investigates the conspiracy behind the assassination of the president. And as him and his team of lawyers, played by J.O. Sanders, Michael Rooker, Laurie Metcalf, Wayne Knight plays one of them, and those are the ones that stand out the most. But as they investigate the assassination. Now, I first saw this when it aired on HBO, probably a few years after it aired in the theater. A couple things stood out. It's a very long movie. It's over 3 hours long. That definitely stood out to me. But one scene earlier on in the movie, after the president is assassinated, and just how people react to it, it's almost like, seems to me like time kind of stops and everybody is involved with it, and they just really are glued to the TV, and it's like a dramatic shift in the way they perceive reality. Suddenly their president has been shot in the head horrifically. At the time, it didn't really ring true to me. It's something like that. If I was thinking, if I saw the president at the time get shot like that, I wouldn't react the way that people were reacting in 1963 in the movie. Anyway, it didn't seem like. But I did talk. My dad was alive at the time, and he says it was that earth-shattering moment. But later on, something similar happened. As far as not a president getting shot, but when 9/11 happened, it did kind of change, I think, a lot of people's perception of reality, where they believed to be safe, when suddenly they realized that perhaps they weren't, and they're, these terrorists could suddenly blow up your building you're in at any moment. So I think that is a similar event that happened as far as changing people's perception of reality and whether they feel safe or not. Even if you don't buy in to Oliver Stone's theories that he speaks about in this movie, you can't deny this is riveting filmmaking. I think the cast here really stands out, and the way that it's directed, this is phenomenal direction. But let's talk about the cast. Obviously led by Costner, and Costner plays a character similar to the character he plays in Untouchables. That is why they cast him in this to begin with. But he does a fantastic job in both movies. But here he, later on in the movie, he has a very long monologue in the courthouse, but he does a great job here, and you really feel like a kind of humanity coming from his performance. Tommy Lee Jones is in the movie. He plays the defendant, who is a businessman, who is the only person that has ever been on trial for the assassination of John F. Kennedy. They don't have a lot on him, but at the same time, it was the only time they were able to bring someone to court and kind of bring some attention to the assassination. Gary Oldman plays Lee Harvey Oswald, and Gary Oldman he does a fantastic job at this character. I was reading a little bit about it. Apparently, there wasn't a lot of the character on the page, and Oliver Stone paid for him to go out and go to the places where Lee Harvey Oswald lived and interview people and try to get into the head of this character more. And Gary Oldman really brings a lot to this, especially considering that there wasn't a lot in the script to begin with, and he kind of creates like he does. He creates an amazing performance for this character. Kevin Bacon plays a smaller part in the movie. He's billed fairly high because most of the supporting cast is billed in alphabetical order, but he is a witness to some of the goings on behind the scenes of some of the people like Oswald and stuff like that. But the scenes that he's in are very strong, and he says this movie helped revitalize his career. Joe Pesci plays a person of interest who seemed to be involved with this conspiracy, according to Oliver Stone. And like what Joe Pesci does. Donald Sutherland plays an informant known in the movie as X. It's based on a real person. The specific scene didn't really happen that happens in the movie, but Donald Sutherland comes to Kevin Costner's character and he delivers a very lengthy monologue. I'm pretty sure it goes on somewhere from 11 to 15 minutes, but it's a riveting monologue, and there's a lot of information dumped on you, but it's his delivery and just the information that is being handed to you is all that is very interesting to see, even if it is just a lot of dialogue. Later on in the movie, like saying, Kevin Costner, he has his own monologue, which is also very well done. It's also interesting to me is some of the supporting cast, they cast against type. They cast Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon, and John Candy in serious roles where they were mostly known for comedy stuff, at least at the time. Which I really appreciate anytime that happens, where they cast an actor, especially a comedic actor, against type, and they just knock it out of the park like these three actors did in this movie, especially John Candy. As far as the box set itself, let's take a look at this thing. So this is a very impressive, thick box set. But why is it so thick? What is in here that? All right, so let's take a look at the movies. It's really just one movie. So here we have the 4K, and inside of it, this one is the 4K here, and this is of the director's cut, and here's a Blu-ray of the director's cut. So you got both of those discs. This one, black and white version on the front. This is the theatrical cut. Blu-ray only. I've seen some complaints about that. I think some people seem to prefer the theatrical cut to the director's cut. It runs about 30 minutes longer. The theatrical cut is already fairly long. It's about 3 hours and 8 minutes. So it may be testing some patience. I didn't mind the extra length when I was watching it. It kind of, I watched it in 2 sittings, and I was here at my house watching it. I wasn't watching it at the theater, and I kind of appreciated the new stuff. There's a scene on a game show or a talk show with John Larroquette, and I kind of liked it. Some people say it's unnecessary. It probably is unnecessary for the narrative, and there's some other things that are added that people think maybe bogs down the running time, and it doesn't help. But I didn't mind it. And then on the third disc, here we got a blue tint going. Jeez. So this is special features. So this has got a bulk of special features on it. It doesn't include, there is a new documentary that Oliver Stone put out recently called JFK Revisited. It doesn't include that. It would have been cool if it did do that. But so you end up with these 3 discs. I think it's maybe a little overkill to put it on 3 disc for one movie, even though the movie is long. I think it might be a bit much, but it is a cool box set, and it is very thick. It is thicker than any of the other Shout Select movies. So it has that. It kind of stands out with that, and it is in itself. It does look impressive. I think it may be unnecessarily thick. I don't know. It looks good on the shelf beside the other Shout Selects. As far as the 4K transfer of the movie, a little bit about this movie. It's not just shot with one type of film stock. It's got 35 millimeter film, 16 millimeter film, even 8 millimeter, and they incorporate news footage. They incorporate home movies shot from the site of when JFK was shot. So it has a lot of different mediums in here, and it is fairly interesting the way that it's put together. And as far as the actual the film, the film where most of it takes place, like the scenes with Costner and stuff like that, all of that looks really fantastic in 4K. It looks sharp and crisp. The lighting looks great. So I recommend the 4K upgrade. It probably a little sharper than the Blu-ray, but it's this is the first time in 4K. All right, before we get out of this, I just want to go a little bit into Oliver Stone's theories. I'm not going to go deep into this, but the biggest question to me is, was Oswald a lone shooter? And based on what you see in this movie presented by Oliver Stone through these amazing actors in these scenes, I would say no. There is a very convincing scene in the movie where Kevin Costner and J.O. Sanders' character are up at the window in the building where Oswald was claimed to have shot Kennedy from, and they test like firing the gun and putting another bullet in it, and they time that against how long it would have taken to a shot. I think it was either 3 or 4 bullets to be able to shoot those, and it didn't make sense time-wise, and there was other logistics, like he'd have to be a really good sharpshooter to make that shot, and by all accounts he wasn't much of a shot, and he most likely was a patsy based on what you see in this movie. Now, when I first saw this movie, I believed it. Everything that was presented, I believed it. But at the same time now, I can kind of see that maybe some of it might not be true. Some of it is just kind of theories or possible things that might have happened. Now, it does seem that the people were being lied to through the media, probably controlled by the government for whatever reason, whether they were trying to cover something up or they just didn't want people to panic over losing their president. They didn't want people to be afraid. That's a possible thing. Here it's presented as the government being behind it, more than likely. And maybe they were. I wouldn't be surprised if they were. But there's not enough evidence to conclude that. But at the same time, there is enough evidence to me to say he didn't shoot. Oswald probably didn't shoot him. And there were other people who involved with this, whether it be Cuba or whatever, and then they were trying to cover it up. Well, thanks for watching. I highly recommend this new 4K outstanding presentation of the extra thick Shout Studios release, JFK. And if you get a chance, if you want to talk some smack or say something like polite, you can throw some comments down below this, or you can also like the video, and there's a subscribe button.